Part 50. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 503. Lu Chang'an watched Bai Hui leave and continued to drink tea. The taste of the tea was not exquisite enough to be savored, but it was still above the standard. At least it was much better than Shang Guandandan's effervescent tablets. Lu Chang'an suspected that Shang Guandandan was just she likes the gurgling bubbles when soaking effervescent tablets, or the slightly sweet taste is what suits her taste. Speaking of which, she should like to drink Coke, Tianfu Coke, Fenhuang Coke, Very Coke, Lashan Coke, and so on. Oh, these brands are gone. Lu Chang'an finished his tea and was about to leave when a girl diagonally across from him wearing a Lolita dress, carrying a Lolita standard bunny bag and a blonde wig finally plucked up the courage and walked over. This girl had been looking here for a long time, and Lu Chang'an was not surprised. After all, even Qian Ning's girlfriend who suddenly met him knew him. Lu Chang'an rarely pays attention to information related to him posted by others. He is quite famous in the southern Hunan martial arts circle. Although he only had one battle, he defeated the leader of the southern Hunan martial arts circle at that time. Coupled with his various actions, it's not surprising to have a bit of fame. After all, this is an era where people are idle to death and entertained to death. Just because someone says something, he can become famous all over the internet and become the king of bad memes. Hello, the girl came over and mustered up the courage to say hello, her cheeks red. Lu Chang'an nodded, but he usually would not give people his contact information easily. Can you please tell me the contact information of the young lady just now? The girl rubbed her fingers on the bunny ears of the rabbit bear bag, and looked at Lu Chang'an nervously and expectantly. The cute apple muscles on her cheeks were a little stiff, and her eyes the water was trembling even more. It seemed that she didn't often do this kind of thing where contact information was required to strike up a conversation. Lu Chang'an picked up the teacup, but it was empty. The girl seemed to be a little too nervous. She actually came to her senses, took the teapot from her table and poured a full cup for Lu Chang'an. It almost overflowed. How steady is your hand to hold it up and drink it steadily? Lu Chang'an patted his face, not embarrassed at all, really. Wasn't she here just now? Lu Chang'an looked at this girl who behaved like a weak little animal, as if she would turn around silently with tears in her eyes if she rejected her. I was working on my courage, I didn't expect that she would leave suddenly. This was an interesting explanation, so Lu Chang'an took out his mobile phone and sent Bai Hui a message to ask. Whatever you want, Bai Hui replied quickly, but his tone was obviously angry. Lu Chang'an gave Bai Hui's contact information to the girl in front of him. Thank you, the girl hugged the rabbit and bear, bowed and sat back, looking at the phone with a slightly shy smile. People are always more willing to become friends with strangers who share common interests and hobbies. In fact, there are a lot of low girls in this group. Most girls who are interested in two-dimensional culture know something about low clothing. Girls who like Hanfu and JK uniforms have a greater chance of getting into low clothing sooner or later. But relatively speaking, it is still a niche after all, and people in niche circles are more enthusiastic about finding friends who speak the same language. Bai Hui's dress looks like a fairy to Lu Chang'an, but it is also a fairy in the eyes of these girls. Girls know how to appreciate girls better, this sentence is absolutely correct. After all, they will appreciate each other's lip color today, the matching of contact lenses, mascara, foundation, etc., as well as a complete outfit, and praise each other's cute little accessories, hairpins, bonnets, etc., from head to toe. Every detail they pay attention to will be discovered and appreciated by equally lovely girls. Girls dating girls is a more refined and elegant scene. They often regret because their boyfriends only say, "Cute, miss the sun." Cute, is it wrong to miss the sun? That's right, that's absolutely right. Men and women think differently. Anyone who forces the other party to agree with their own thoughts is a fool. Lu Chang'an didn't drink the girl's new cup of tea, so he stood up and left. The store manager ran over and gave him 2 snacks packed in cardboard boxes. Lu Chang'an took it to find Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong. They also had a great time playing in the Children's Entertainment Center. Zhou Dongdong slid down the high slide, and Shang Guandandan picked her up from below. However, Shang Guandandan lost his balance while stepping on the bubble ball on the ground, and the two of them rolled. Became a ball. She really overestimated her capabilities. She rolled down from above. It was as powerful as a human cannon. Lu Chang'an praised Zhou Dongdong's strength while despising Shang Guandandan. Zhou Dongdong was very happy to be praised. Shang Guandandan glanced at what Lu Chang'an was holding, pulled Zhou Dongdong, and then the two of them stared at it together. Lu Chang'an gave them 2 small snacks. Seeing that it was almost time, he went up to find Zhou Shuling and went back together. After staying indoors for a while, the temperature actually dropped when I came out. The wind picked up on the street, and occasionally scraps of paper were blown up and scattered on the street. "Brother Chang'an, I'm so cold, please hold me," Zhou Dongdong hugged Lu Chang'an's thigh. Lu Chang'an put her under his arm and took her back. Shang Guandandan was a little envious, but felt that it was a bit like being sold. She didn't feel cold anyway, not to mention that if she made such a request, he might not agree. After all, the scene of a loving mother and a filial son very few. The temperature dropped by 7 to 8 degrees. When Lu Chang'an got up the next morning, he still wore shorts and short sleeves to go out for a run. There were obviously more envious looks at him on the street. "Young people are full of firepower," old man Qian also said the same. So Lu Chang'an put on long clothes and trousers when he came back. The weather in recent years has been unpredictable, but for Lu Chang'an, the cold weather is not a problem. On the contrary, even if there is a refrigerator in summer, the hot weather is inconvenient to store food. The temperature, the improvement will also change the delicate taste of food by the lips and tongue. Unfortunately for Lu Chang'an, Nuan bought so many stockings and half-length stockings that he probably wouldn't be able to wear them before he finished admiring them, but there was no problem in letting her wear them for him in private, so it didn't bother him much. Lu Chang'an went to see Nuan for training on Friday. Nuan was still a little far away from the threshold for leaving the school volleyball team, but she had been successfully selected for the college volleyball team. Although it is not yet possible to enter the starting lineup, Nuan is already satisfied. In real sports competition, even among the bottom teams, the competition is very cruel. How many students with sports specialties are involved? As a team member who mainly focuses on hobbies, there is no reason for her to be a member of the team. When I came up, I was looked at in a different light. Unless she can prove her strength, in this kind of team competitive sports, if she doesn't have the strength to start through the back door, it will be her who will be embarrassed after playing. Lu Chang'an was still sitting in the audience, watching Nuan train with other girls just like he did in high school. But when she jumped, her long flying hair and bouncy legs always attracted more attention. After the training camp, Nuan went to wash her hands and face, and then came to Lu Chang'an with the volleyball. "I just noticed that when our captain was practicing heavy dunks, you looked at her several times," and Nuan ran over and acted coquettishly to show that she was shrewd. Every move he made could not escape her fiery eyes. "Someone is better at playing football than you." "How can I see what's wrong with her playing?" Lu Chang'an said confidently. "If someone is prettier than you, you can only be jealous if I see her several times, but how can there be such a person?" And Nuan giggled. When others said she was good looking, it was inevitable for her to be modest. However, it was only natural for her boyfriend to praise her for being good looking. "The coach told me to cut my hair shorter," and Nuan grabbed her hair with some distress and got down to business. "Just cut it, it's too long now, not suitable for sports." "Didn't your mother say, your ponytail and you look like a pair of black stockings on a bamboo pole after all?" Professor Liu's description is also very accurate. Girls as tall as An Nuan rarely wear twin tails, otherwise they will easily become like Professor Liu. I hate it. You and my mother are talking bad about me. Then you go with me to get a haircut. An Nuan made up her mind. In high school, her hair was not so long and the requirements were not so strict, but the team in college was different after all. The competition between the teams in the colleges is very fierce. Their college is a large college with a lot of talents. And Nuan wants to cherish this opportunity. Lu Chang'an nodded. When he got there, he realized that the haircut he understood and the girl's haircut were completely different things. He thought An Nuan just cut his hair short. Wasn't that just a matter of sitting there and clicking a few scissors? As a result, An Nuan completed the entire process of washing, cutting, and caring for her hair. 3 hours had passed. In fact, the goal of cutting her hair short only took a few minutes. She said 3 hours was pretty quick. Otherwise, why do girls like to invite their best friends to get their hair done together? Because it's hard to pass such a long time, so if you find that your girlfriend or wife often gets her hair done by herself, it's probably because she can tolerate loneliness better. 3 hours later, Lu Chang'an felt that he was still too young and had little experience. Girls in the past really didn't need so long to do their hair. He thought of the fashionable young women in the 1980s and 1990s. It was probably from that time that their hair needs more and more time. Your boyfriend is so nice, the technician praised him. There were many men who accompanied their girlfriends to get their hair done, but most of them left out of boredom after a while, or went to find a place to stay. Very few of them sat down like Lu Chang'an. Chat with her and look at her. Yes, I like her the most. And Nuan was slightly shy, but she never concealed this. A girl should be reserved and arrogant, but she should also let him know how much she likes him and how much she wants to show him off. Just pretend to be coy. Is this guy Lu Chang'an interested in guessing your thoughts? The technician smiled, a little surprised by the girl's confession. After getting their hair done, Lu Chang'an and An Nuan went to Suiwen Street to eat. Lu Chang'an said, by the way, I met Bai Hui at school a few days ago. She was promoting the comic show. She gave me 4 tickets to the comic show. You will go to school tomorrow. Do you want to have a training camp too? If you don't go, I'll go with a few roommates. And Nuan did know that Bai Hui was going to be a guest at a comic exhibition over the weekend. She saw it in Bai Hui's space, but was there anything worth thinking about and being vigilant about Bai Hui giving away tickets? And Nuan clasped his hands together, put them together and stared at his chin. He began to think about how he could show his trust in Lu Chang'an. He didn't take a little vixen like Bai Hui seriously. In fact, he was taking precautions before they happened. He couldn't. What about letting Bai Hui take the opportunity to act like a monster and find An Nuan, who was seriously injured? I recommend a book called You Are Really Good at Playing in the Second Dimension. If you like two-dimensional fan works, you can read it. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 504. Many girls want to control all their boyfriends' whereabouts, but a smart girl must grasp the right balance to make him feel that she cares about him, but not to make him feel that she is too controlling and annoying. And Nuan is a smart girl. That's Bai Hui. The threat second only to Qinyanan is one that An Nuan can deal with, but must also be wary of. After all, Lu Chang'an has always been obsessed with Bai Hui. It's not the time for An Nuan to be proud. She can't be proud now and must be careful. And Nuan did trust Lu Chang'an, and he also gave her the confidence to trust. For example, he made it clear that he went to see it with his roommate, not alone. If he were alone, that would be when Bai Hui showed all his strength. He went with his roommate. Bai Hui would at most say hello when he met her. His face would be reserved and polite, and his smile would be the same. Slightly shy but not ambiguous. And Nuan thought for a while, I have a training camp tomorrow. Last time you brought pork to Chinyanan, I went with you. It seemed like I was stingy, this time I will be generous and let you go alone. I'm going with my roommate, Lu Chang'an corrected. And Nuan just said this on purpose, to appear generous and confident as a real girlfriend. Of course, it might not be the case if Chinyanan invites her privately or something like that. Sometimes Xiajiazi is just as angry as Xiajiazi. I'll give Bai Hui a call. And Nuan thought for a moment, raised her finger and said SHHH, rolled her eyes, and dialed a number on her phone. The call was quickly connected, and Nuan said, Bai Hui, I heard that you have a guest performance at the Comic-Con tomorrow. Lu Chang'an asked me to go, but I have to train tomorrow and can't support you. Oh, it doesn't matter. Bai Hui was calm and unflustered, but she was a little bit surprised that Nuan would call. There must be some little trick here, and Bai Hui was used to it. That's good, I'm afraid you'll say I'm not a friend enough. It's about the Comic-Con tickets. I have to explain to you. I was promoting the Comic-Con that day, and Lu Chang'an came over to look at the posters. I just sent out a batch, and the remaining few were given to him. Bai Hui explained. Bai Hui calmed down, feeling that something was being done. Lu Chang'an was going to the Comic Expo tomorrow, and Nuan called her specifically. It must be because she was a little worried and wanted to come to demonstrate to gain some sense of superiority, so as to feel psychologically safe. What are you explaining this, really, we are all old classmates, what can I think about? And Nuan adjusted her breathing and continued, he went with his roommates. I have several roommates of his. I know one of them, there seems to be a bit of a homebody, and he might become your biggest fan. Bai Hui sneered, you know all his roommates, are they all turned into spies by you? Who is warning this? As for what it means to be extra homely, this tone is full of superiority towards lovers of two-dimensional culture. There are a lot of people at this comic show, and the place is quite big. You may not meet them, but they just have a good time. In addition to all kinds of beautiful girls, young ladies can watch, and there are many programs and activities that you can participate in. By the way, there is also a claw machine to play with. After Bai Hui finished speaking, she smiled and said, I'll hang up now. The clothes I'm going to wear tomorrow haven't been sorted out yet. After saying that, Bai Hui hung up the phone, and Nuan couldn't help but frown. Why does Bai Hui emphasize that there is still a claw machine to play with? Generally speaking, normal people's conversations will not jump too much. The topics and content involved in the topics are all relevant, or they are things that two people have shared the same impressions, topics, and feelings. Claw machine? Bai Hui and Nuan have never played claw machines together. By the way, the last thing she said should be regarded as a reminder to Lu Chang'an and his party, that is, there is a claw machine to play with. This is what she wanted to tell Lu Chang'an. No, this is not what she wants to tell Lu Chang'an, this is what she wants to tell Nuan. She and Lu Chang'an have something related to the claw machine. This is definitely not a blind association, because the crane machine can also be considered as the many programs and activities that can be participated in she mentioned earlier, but she took it out separately later, which is the key point. Claw machine. And Nuan hung up the phone, tilted her head to look at Lu Chang'an, showing an extremely cute and gentle expression, and looked at her boyfriend with a charming look. Eat first, then go catch the doll after eating. Lu Chang'an nodded. And Nuan didn't say much, and tried not to ask. If he did, he would lose. After dinner, Lu Chang'an and Nuan went to the amusement park to catch dolls. The tokens sold in the claw machines near the university town were cheaper than those in the city center, and the quality of the dolls was also the same. I want to catch this black Tyrannosaurus Rex. And Nuan pointed at the doll in the first machine and said with a coquettish pout, saying that she wanted to catch it, but she looked like she was handing over a task. Lu Chang'an nodded, stretched out his hand, blow. While Lu Chang'an was washing his hands after eating and before he was touching around, and Nuan blew a breath very close to Lu Chang'an's palm, kissed his palm, and said proudly, "I'll kiss them all, you have to catch a lot of dolls for me." Lu Chang'an put the coin in, grabbed the joystick and shook it a few times, swinging the handle around. Lu Chang'an grasped the round handle and adjusted the position of the handle. The doll was grabbed and it was difficult to struggle. Lu Chang'an, he was caught, moved, dropped, and came out under his control, all in one go. "Wow, that's amazing. I used to play here with Zizzy, and we didn't even catch a single one for $100, and Nuan shouted in surprise, and she didn't mind revealing how good she and Hans Zizzy were. "Change the machine, come and try it." Lu Chang'an pointed to the one next to him. And Nuan put in the coin and suddenly became a little nervous. She followed Lu Chang'an's example and swung her hand around. Then she hesitated for a while and waited until the time was almost gone before she lowered her hand. He just grabbed one of the white ant's legs, so of course he didn't pull it out. White ants are not cute. I don't like them anymore, and Nuan stamped her feet and pulled Lu Chang'an to another one. She tried again and failed. "I'm here to help you." Lu Chang'an hugged Nuan from behind, grabbed her hand and placed it on the rocker. And Nuan blushed a little. After all, couples looking like this are annoying, but she liked it, so Nuan tilted her head and rubbed his cheek, watching the gripper in the machine move with soft eyes. She has really grown taller. If she doesn't tiptoe as much as before when kissing him, thinking about many things in the past and leaning in his arms, and Nuan suddenly feels that she really doesn't need to care about anything with Bai Hui. If Lu Chang'an would be with Bai Hui, then he would probably never believe in love again in his life. Caught it, and Nuan was pleasantly surprised to find that Lu Chang'an grabbed the doll again and moved it to the exit bit by bit. Lu Chang'an bent down and picked out the doll from the exit and handed it to Nuan. He then hugged her and went to the next machine to try his hands on it. The two of them didn't play much here. Lu Chang'an stopped after grabbing 20 dolls. And Nuan said that it was worth the 100 yuan she and Hans Zizzy had dropped here before, and they would never show off their skills here again. "Come and give them away." The girl who put their doll in the bag was obviously relieved. She looked like a master at first glance. Who could bear it if she really had to do it every day? "Why did you suddenly come to catch the baby?" Lu Chang'an asked Nuan by the way as he sent her home. "Because I always feel that there are many things, even if I have done them before, but if I have not done them with you, I have a feeling that I want to experience them with you. Probably just being with the person I like, doing anything. It's special." And Nuan didn't think too much, it was just what she was pursuing, and she blurted it out naturally. "I think so too." Lu Chang'an touched Nuan's long hair. "There are some things I want to experience with you." "Is there anything in particular you want to experience with me?" And Nuan blinked, her cheek slightly ashamed. "Yes." Lu Chang'an frowned slightly, "but you still need to work hard." "You?" And Nuan looked around in a panic. Fortunately, this was the shadow of the stairs of the orange garden. She immediately kicked Lu Chang'an in shame. "Rogue, go back quickly." Lu Chang'an smiled, knowing that she was just faking it, showing that she was very dirty and capable of teasing others. If he really wanted to take action, she would probably look like a nervous and motionless zombie girl. Lu Chang'an went home. And Nuan also went home, put a blanket on the bed, placed all the dolls on it, took a photo, and posted a message, "Whose boyfriend is so awesome? You're home. You're home. You're home. You're home." After all, it was in Nuan, and there were so many people who fulfilled her wish to show affection, and there was a queue of people replying to her comments. In the other dormitory, there was a ding sound. Bai Hui checked that his yellow diamond was still within the validity period and took a relieved look. Turning back, Bai Hui glanced at her cute doll. "Why are you always holding this ugly doll these days?" roommate Li Hungman asked strangely. It's the same as me." "No one likes it." Bai Hui smiled. "Don't dislike it? Is it true that no one likes Anisi?" Come and vote for her and say you love her. Today, I suddenly missed Miss Han. She was tricked by Lilu into taking medicine that would make her forget about him. Recommend a book. Harry Potter, The Legend of the Academic Master. Traveling to England in the 1980s, John Hart was originally prepared to study hard, work hard on scientific research, and fight for the construction of a modern socialist society throughout his life, the best Harry Potter article Xiahua has ever read. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 505. Silly dolls, ugly dolls, cute dolls. The same thing has different feelings in the eyes of different people. Such a simple truth, but there are always people who think there is a problem if they don't like it. If you don't like it, you can find 100 and 1,000 reasons. If you like it, one reason is enough, no matter how much you say, it is just like it. Lu Chang'an likes the moon in the sky. He is a person who will raise his head to look at the stars and the moon in the sky at any time. Just like what is said in The Moon and Sevenpence, in this era of money everywhere, he looks up. Saw the moon in the sky. Such people are sometimes worthy of admiration, but sometimes they are annoying to get along with. Because the mind is too determined, it is difficult to change. For example, Bai Hui thinks Lu Chang'an is really annoying because he only likes An Nuan and doesn't like other girls. He especially doesn't like girls who he considers to be average-looking, average-sized, short-legged, vain, and not as kind as An Nuan. The white fennel he was attracted to. Lu Chang'an walked home under the moonlight, and received a text message on the way. Are you going to Comic-Con tomorrow? I'll just ask. Go, what's there to ask? Lu Chang'an felt confused, but he still replied with 2 words. Back in the community, there was no card game running under the grape trellis, nor was there a girl holding a pot. Aunt Xie peeled the melon seeds and said that Shang Guandandan bought 3 more effervescent tablets today. I wonder why she bought so many. Lu Chang'an went to the mahjong parlor and found it was still lively. Lu Chang'an watched around but did not play. I don't know why Shang Guandandan didn't follow the old men and old ladies in mahjong. Maybe mahjong is too difficult for her, Lu Chang'an thought, and it would be interesting to secretly tease Shang Guandandan about his IQ. Back home, Lu Chang'an opened the door and saw Shang Guandandan sitting on the sofa holding a thermos, watching TV nervously. Lu Chang'an glanced at it and saw the title The Song of Romance in the Clouds in the lower right corner of the screen. It was an old film from 3 years ago, but because the producer and the lead actor were popular, there were still TV stations broadcasting it. Lu Chang'an still remembers seeing a clip of this drama on a nearby large advertising screen a while before the college entrance examination. At that time, he felt that the characters in the drama could not support the aura of the influential figures of that era. Now he looked at Shang Guandandan, who was holding a thermos pot. Compared to her 2,000 years ago, it would be more difficult for the Queen Mother in front of her to perform, right? If you don't act, you won't be able to act. Watching others play themselves, Lu Chang'an watched the TV, turned back and looked at Shang Guandandan incomprehensibly, and suddenly felt a sudden realization. With the development of human civilization, there are always new things coming out that he has never experienced before. Yes, this is the reason why humans still feel novel and fresh even after living for a long, long time. There is a role for Shang Guandandan in the TV series The Song of Romance, but she is not called Shang Guandandan in the TV series. In fact, there is also a plot about deposing the emperor in the TV series, but Lu Chang'an is not interested in watching this kind of TV series. So naturally I don't have the experience of watching others act myself. Shang Guandandan ignored Lu Chang'an, she was concerned about the development of the plot. Excuse me, what is it like to watch others play yourself and your family and friends, Lu Chang'an asked seriously and enthusiastically, approaching Shang Guandandan. Shang Guandandan raised his hand and pushed the unsuspecting Lu Chang'an away. Lu Chang'an took a few steps back after being pushed by her. He was immediately convinced that Shang Guandandan could definitely lift a large kettle. It is estimated that she could even lift a boiler for boiling water. Rise. Lu Chang'an stopped teasing her and went to wash clothes. After a while, Zhou Dongdong ran downstairs with his reading textbook. Without seeing Lu Chang'an, he took the book and came to Shang Guandandan's side. Shang Guandandan saw Zhou Dongdong holding the textbook and remembered the last time he volunteered to teach Zhou Dongdong how to do questions. Sister Egg, I have homework to do. Can you help me with it? Zhou Dongdong took the book and flipped through it, then slid down the sofa and knelt down next to Shang Guandandan. Shang Guandandan's eyes had left Zhou Dongdong and fell straight on the TV. Then without saying a word, he slowly fell down and lay on the sofa, motionless. Sister Egg, what's wrong with you? Zhou Dongdong looked back at Shang Guandandan. Shang Guandandan had no strength for the time being and couldn't get up. He couldn't open his eyes or move. You fainted, Zhou Dongdong was shocked, threw away the reading textbook in his hand and got up. Zhou Dongdong watched with wide eyes for a few seconds. He remembered the uncle's method of saving his aunt on TV. He puffed up his cheeks and lay on Shang Guandandan's face, blowing into her nostrils. Shang Guandandan didn't move, couldn't move, she still couldn't move. Zhou Dongdong has always been a persevering, determined, resourceful and brave child. He would never give up and continue to blow air into Shang Guandandan's nostrils. Stop, Shang Guandandan raised her hand. She really couldn't stand Zhou Dongdong continuing to blow like this, because Zhou Dongdong kept blowing and his saliva came out. Sister Egg, you're alive, Zhou Dongdong jumped happily and touched Shang Guandandan's head, which was the same feeling she liked when touching Lu Xian's head. Why are you blowing into my nose? Shang Guandandan really couldn't understand what Zhou Dongdong was doing. In the novels Shang Guandandan had read, when it came to first aid, it was also done from mouth to mouth. Although Shang Guandandan didn't want others to save him mouth to mouth, why did he have to blow air into his nose? Of course Zhou Dongdong has his own reasons, because the sister on TV fainted, and the brothers blew into their mouths. Their mouths were open, but your mouth was closed tightly. Yes, I have no choice but to blow air into your nose. Shang Guandandan sat up slowly without saying a word. Lu Chang'an finished washing his clothes and walked out. Zhou Dongdong quickly went to show his merit and told Lu Chang'an about his witty rescue of Sister Egg. Ha ha ha. Lu Chang'an walked up to Shang Guandandan and laughed loudly. As the saying goes, one thing will bring down another, and a stupid girl like Shang Guandandan must be treated by an even stupider child. Brother Chang'an, I have to do my reading homework. Zhou Dongdong looked around and found the textbook under the sofa that she had accidentally kicked in her panic. She took it out and patted it. Lu Chang'an wiped his hands and picked up the textbook. Seeing Lu Chang'an pick up the textbook, Shang Guandandan breathed a sigh of relief. He sat farther away from Lu Chang'an and Zhou Dongdong and changed the channel to watch TV, because the TV series that just happened was finished and would not be available until tomorrow. Reading homework, which article should I read today? Lu Chang'an flipped through the reading textbook. Zhou Dongdong climbed onto the sofa, then climbed into Lu Chang'an's arms and sat down. He casually read an article, then took out a handful of wet melon seeds from his pocket and waved to Shang Guandandan. Shang Guandandan refused to eat, but Zhou Dongdong ate by himself. There were not many words in the reading textbook for first-grade primary school students that she could recognize, so she had to rely on adults to read and explain. Lu Chang'an read an excerpt from Yesheng Tao's Acid. Just after reading a few sentences, Zhou Dongdong stuffed a melon seed into Lu Chang'an's mouth. Lu Chang'an took a bite. No, why is it so moist? Asked, have you ever soaked melon seeds in water? I put some uneaten food in my pocket last time. My mother washed and dried the clothes, and I found that there were still melon seeds in my pocket that I could eat, Zhou Dongdong said happily. Can this be eaten? Lu Chang'an vomited it out, and at the same time took out all the melon seeds in Zhou Dongdong's pocket and threw them away. Nuts soaked in water can easily become moldy and produce aflatoxin, a strong carcinogen. The key is dirty and not tasty. Ha ha ha. Shang Guandandan imitated Lu Chang'an's laughter just now, 1, 2, 3, and laughed 3 times. Lu Chang'an gave her a roll of his eyes and continued reading the text. There were no melon seeds to eat, so Zhou Dongdong fell asleep after only half of Lu Chang'an's reading. Zhou Shuling went home and took a look downstairs. Lu Chang'an carried Zhou Dongdong upstairs. Zhou Shuling bought a lot of wool and came back. She said she planned to knit one for Lu Chang'an, Zhou Dongdong, and Shang Guandandan. Sweater. What about you? Lu Chang'an asked. I don't need it. Zhou Shuling had never thought of knitting for herself. She didn't have so much free time to knit one more piece. You can knit it for yourself. I only wear single clothes in winter. Lu Chang'an waved his hand. Hearing his firm words, Zhou Shuling said nothing and just looked at him unhappily. Hey, knit, you knit. I won't let you knit. Look at your expression, you look so aggrieved. Lu Chang'an waved his hand and let her go. Zhou Shuling rolled her eyes at him angrily, and then smiled again. She knew Lu Chang'an didn't need him to repay him or anything, but she really didn't make any move. How can a person be so shameless? He should be conscious when he should be conscious. He is not a person who is greedy for benefits. Zhou Shuling can only do this kind of thing. Lu Chang'an came down from upstairs and found that Shang Guandandan hadn't gone back to bed yet, and was still sitting on the sofa watching TV. Aren't you going to bed yet? Lu Chang'an was about to go to sleep, so he chased people away. I want to watch a big TV. Shang Guan hesitated. My TV is a small one, and it's bulging and doesn't look good. Okay, I'll give it to you. You can move away. Lu Chang'an waved his hand casually. Shang Guandandan immediately ran over happily, reached out and hugged the TV, unplugged the plug and cable, picked it up, walked to the door, walked out sideways, walked sideways downstairs, and left. Lu Chang'an was stunned. He really just talked casually. Why is this person like this? When I asked her to boil water, she said she couldn't lift the kettle. Just now she was holding a TV that was several times as big as her body, so how could she be so nimble? Lu Chang'an sat on the sofa and looked at the empty TV cabinet in front of him. After sitting for a while, he accepted the fact, touched his hair, went to take a shower and went to sleep. Fortunately, with Qin Yinan's current mood, she probably wouldn't come to his house recently. Otherwise, when she saw that she bought 2 TVs for her brother and he gave them away, she was afraid that she would not say anything and would only watch them in that way. It would be uncomfortable to look at him with the eyes of a heartless man. Lu Chang'an often talks casually, but it's just that a silly little girl like Shang Guandandan shouldn't talk casually with her, as this person is easy to take seriously. Learn your lesson. Lu Chang'an just wiped his hair and went to bed. He will go to the comic exhibition tomorrow without Guandandan. Kidnap the stupid queen mother and the stupid child to ask for monthly votes and recommendation votes. I recommend a book called Making Myths, it's very good. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 506. When Lu Chang'an woke up in the morning, he looked at his hair, which was as luxuriant and messy as weeds. He remembered that in the past, when some people were arranging for certain occasions, they would spit into their hands, apply it on their hair and smooth it back. It's a bit hard to accept. Lu Chang'an thought about the uncomfortable things, then got up, combed his hair, and walked out of the bedroom to see Shang Guandandan coming up early in the morning. She sat on the high table where Lu Chang'an was writing, with her beloved thermos jug next to her on the outside of her thigh. She held the lid of the thermos jug in her hand, filled with steaming water. Her feet couldn't touch the ground, so she shook it in the air. Shaking, the thin calves dangled out from the seam of the skirt from time to time, a piece of delicate white. It's early in the morning and there's no meat buns for you to eat. Why are you sitting here? Lu Chang'an walked past her and went to the bathroom to brush his teeth. Shang Guandandan put down the lid of the pot, jumped down from the high table, followed Lu Chang'an, watched him enter the bathroom, observed that he didn't take off his clothes, then walked in and poked with his finger. Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an twisted his waist to avoid it. The toothbrush was poked back and forth in his mouth, which suddenly reminded him of An Nuan brushing his teeth. It was not that he had never had to be served by someone to brush his teeth, but An Nuan obviously didn't have that kind of attitude. A level of serving people. Can you give me your little black box? Shang Guandandan poked Lu Chang'an again. Lu Chang'an thought for a while, and she was probably talking about set-top boxes. Although Shang Guandandan already knew a lot about modern technology, it was obviously impossible for him to have enough modern common sense like a real modern person. So she happily took the TV back last night, and after charging it, she found that there was no program for her to watch. Lu Chang'an told her after brushing his teeth, it's useless to take down the set-top box. It requires signal input and is not installed downstairs. This TV is a smart TV. If you connect it to the internet, you can watch programs even on the internet. Shang Guandandan just looked at Lu Chang'an. She didn't understand what he was talking about. Couldn't he help her solve the problem directly? Why do you say so many things that she doesn't understand? It is probably to show that he is powerful. After all, boys like to show off in front of people regardless of their relationship. This is something that parents often need to understand. So Shang Guandandan climbed onto the stool and stood there, touched Lu Chang'an lovingly, jumped down again, and walked out of the room. Lu Chang'an didn't understand what she was thinking, but since he was not very willing to have the TV set moved away by her, he wouldn't be happy to go get her a TV set right away. Let's talk about it when he comes back in the afternoon. For breakfast, Shang Guandandan liked meat buns. After breakfast, Lu Chang'an set off to the comic exhibition venue. The venue is located in the east of Junxia, close to the window of the world where Lu Chang'an and An Nuan have been. The location is relatively remote and it takes a lot of time to walk there. Lu Chang'an is not a person in a hurry, but he has all the tickets. Sun Shutong, Wei Xuanyi, and Qin's Haiqiang set off from a relatively farther place, but they must have arrived before Lu Chang'an by taking the subway first and then taking a taxi. Lu Chang'an had just slowly walked to the train station when he had already received a message from Qin's Haiqiang asking for his location. It was beyond Lu Chang'an's expectation that these people were so active in participating in a comic exhibition. Lu Chang'an saw that the shops on the street had basically opened, and he saw a Chayanyu's tea shop, which had a new product, and the cup was very nice, so he bought a cup and drank it. Compared with many so-called internet celebrity tea shops, the unit price is more than 20 or 30 yuan, and the average price of tea Yanyus is only 15, which seems very conscientious. He walked to the venue holding the tea, naturally a little slower. Lu Chang'an also finished drinking the tea and handed the tickets to the three people who had been waiting anxiously. A young lady wearing very sexy clothes has already left, Sun Shutong said regretfully. Seeing ordinary girls dressed so sexy on the scene is more exciting than watching some professional models or those characters produced by Kozer, Wei Xuanyi said eagerly, and showed a smile thanking Lu Chang'an for the treat. After all, compared to Qin's Haiqiang, he and Sun Shutong actually had a rough relationship with Lu Chang'an. So those candid and self-portrait films are more expensive than professional films at film stores, Qin's Haiqiang said with a good understanding of the market. The difference between acting and peeping is like this in people's hearts, Lu Chang'an said with a smile. The four of them chatted for a while. After checking the tickets, an invisible seal was stamped on the back of their hands. They passed the security check and entered the venue. This venue is an international convention and exhibition center, and now only a part of the area is open for the organizers of the comic exhibition. This was Lu Chang'an's first time to come to the Comic-Con. After all, it was not fashionable in Professor Lu Jianshi's era. If Bai Hui hadn't mentioned this and given him a ticket, he wouldn't have had the idea to come here specifically to participate. He wanted to see everything. Lu Chang'an looked around. Although it was not as fresh and nervous as Grandma Lu entering the Grand View Garden, people who often attend comic exhibitions could tell that this was a newcomer who had not had much exposure to the two-dimensional world. In comparison, Qin's Haiqiang seems to be like a fish in water, and even Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong are better able to integrate into such an environment. However, Lu Chang'an also asked questions that he did not understand very enthusiastically, allowing Qin's Haiqiang to show the professional level of a two-dimensional enthusiast. But Lu Chang'an could see that Qin's Haiqiang still couldn't forget his wives, and he paid more attention and complicated eyes to some cosplayers who played the characters in the mobile games he used to play, and said, "Teresa, the world's #1, you're so cute, I'll knock Judas down, and you'll all die," and so on. He stared straight at a little girl carrying a big cross and couldn't move. "Next time you come to Comic-Con, you can cosplay one of your wives," Lu Chang'an suggested, and then saw a warm light flashing in Qin's Haiqiang's eyes. "Actually, I have it in my bag." Qin's Haiqiang lowered his voice and said to Lu Chang'an. "What's there?" Lu Chang'an looked at Qin's Haiqiang's bulging backpack. If he came to the comic exhibition for neither photography nor acting, why would he carry such a big bag? Cos clothes, yasakuras, and prosthetic breasts. Qin's Haiqiang was prepared. "You really have become like your own wife." Lu Chang'an cupped his hands and pointed to the dressing room not far away. "Go ahead. If Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong ask, I will tell you to leave first. If you do something that is not convenient for acquaintances to know, you always need someone to cover it," Lu Chang'an said with familiarity. "Hey, thank you." Qin's Haiqiang slipped into the crowd while Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong were not paying attention. After Qin's Haiqiang changed his clothes and put on makeup, Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong probably wouldn't recognize him even if they saw him. What Lu Chang'an wonders is, doesn't this kind of thing require a certain learning process and time accumulation? For example, putting on makeup is not an easy task, especially for men. Maybe Qin's Haiqiang has practiced a lot in private, or maybe his talent has awakened. Many people may not know that they may have extraordinary talents in a field that they have never been exposed to. Many people spend their entire lives working in jobs that they don't like or even have no talent for. Many people never have the courage to resolutely invest their enthusiasm, energy, money, and time in the things they are interested in throughout their lives. So, teenagers who like women's clothing, go and try it. Lu Chang'an withdrew his encouraging eyes. He just encouraged others casually. He didn't want to try it himself. His interests and hobbies have always been very specific. Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong turned around and found that Qin's Haiqiang was missing, so they asked. Lu Chang'an passed by perfunctorily. Sun Shutong pointed to a cozer that was being photographed by many photographers and asked Lu Chang'an to take a look. He is a very revealing character. No wonder, in addition to photographers, there are many spectators taking photos with their mobile phones. Although the expression on the cozer's face is a bit stiff, he is still dealing with it very seriously. There is no doubt that she was getting the vibe and attention she wanted. Why aren't there people squatting on the ground and taking pictures from the perspective of their skirts? Lu Chang'an expressed curiosity again, because he had seen such pictures, and some of the photographers in them only took pictures from the perspective of the floor. Because there is no one to take the lead. If there are two starts, and there is no strong objection from cozer, someone will follow. Sun Shutong thought for a while and said. That's it. Lu Chang'an nodded and watched Wei Xuanyi come back from looking for a cosplayer to take a photo. He looked excited and suggested that Sun Shutong also take a photo. Taking photos is also a relatively common activity at comic exhibitions. Many people come to comic exhibitions just to take photos with various cosers. It would be even better if they could take photos with some famous guests. The three of them were still standing in the photography area, watching the photographers with various professional-looking equipment pulling various cosers to take photos of the scene. These cosers who are attracted by photographers are basically those with good figures and sexy or revealing clothes. These photographers will surround them and take pictures non-stop. There is nothing to say about this. One is willing to expose himself, and the other is willing to be photographed. The onlookers are excited to watch, and then turn around to despise the culture of selling meat. It is quite satisfying. "Hey, have you been standing here for too long?" A soft and waxy voice came from behind, with a sweet smell unique to some girls. As soon as people heard the voice, they thought it was a moist girl. Turning around, despite wearing a mask and a wide-brimmed hat, Lu Chang'an recognized her as Bai Hui after taking one look at her eyes and chest. "If you hadn't watched us for too long, how would you know that we had been standing here for too long? We were watching openly, but you were peeping. How could you have the nerve to criticize us?" Lu Chang'an said calmly. Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong were a little embarrassed at first. After all, they were reading some meaty content. They were somewhat embarrassed. Seeing Lu Chang'an's calm attitude of questioning, they couldn't help but admire him. How could ordinary people recover from being attacked so quickly? "Who has been looking at you for too long? Really, I just saw you standing here when I walked over. When I came back, I found you still standing here," Bai Hui said with some annoyance. Lu Chang'an, a pervert with no taste, he likes an nuan. Bai Hui doesn't say that he has no taste. After all, it's an nuan, but what's so interesting about these cosers showing off their flesh at comic exhibitions? There's no place like White Fennel. He knew clearly that she was here, but he ignored the most beautiful female guest in the room and came to this corner to look at girls whose breasts were not as good as hers, whose figures were not as good as hers, and whose faces were not as good as hers. Who is this person? Of course, Bai Hui didn't want him to look at her, but after objectively analyzing his behavior, she felt that this person had poor taste, vulgarity. "Lu Chang'an, let me introduce you." Wei Xuanyi nudged Lu Chang'an, and Sun Shutong was also very hopeful. "White Fennel," Lu Chang'an said. Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong recognized him. After all, they were not acquaintances and they were wearing masks. However, they remembered that the first time they saw Bai Hui was with an nuan outside the library. That was the beautiful girl who stunned the restless hearts of young boys when school started. Bai Hui only has a pair of eyes exposed now, but just looking at her eyes, I feel that her entire face should be very good looking. Although many people now like to wear masks to cover half of their faces, after taking them off, they often look completely different. "Hello, we meet again." Bai Hui took off her mask and showed a sweet smile. Lu Chang'an has never seen her smile so sweetly, and it feels a bit fake, like those idol stars who want to attract fans when facing their fans. "Hello, hello." Wei Xuanyi felt his heart pounding. He didn't know if he had already received some visual stimulation and his heart was ready to move. Now he just wanted to shout, "Oops, it's the feeling of heartbeat." "By the way, we have seen your poster." Sun Shutong also remembered it and was a little flattered. "You are a guest, right? Can we take a photo with you?" Bai Hui nodded generously, and then glanced at Lu Chang'an. "Why are you looking at me?" Lu Chang'an looked back. "Come on, take a group photo for us." Sun Shutong and Wei Xuanyi stood on either side of Bai Hui, and both handed their mobile phones to Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an took their mobile phones and took several photos of the three of them and the two of them respectively. After returning the phone, Sun Shutong asked, "Lu Chang'an, aren't you taking pictures?" Lu Chang'an and Bai Hui looked at each other. Bai Hui raised her head reservedly and looked into the distance. She suddenly remembered that even at the graduation ceremony, she didn't seem to have taken a photo alone with Lu Chang'an. After all, he was particularly annoying at that time. What should I take with her? We are high school classmates and have taken graduation photos, Lu Chang'an said with a smile. This suggestion was meaningless. Bai Hui handed her cell phone to Sun Shutong. Come on, I met a cosmic-level steel man. I'm very curious about it. If I don't take a photo with him, I feel like I went to the zoo and didn't take a photo of a giant panda. Bai Hui stood next to Lu Chang'an with an expressionless face. Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong laughed in agreement, as if whatever Bai Hui said was interesting. Lu Chang'an clasped his hands on his chest, but his eyes were looking sideways. Bai Hui suddenly tilted her head and hit Lu Chang'an on the shoulder with her head. Lu Chang'an couldn't help but turn around and look at her, and the corners of Bai Hui's mouth raised slightly. Sun Shutong understood very well and immediately captured this picture. Then he looked at the screen and was stunned for a moment before returning the phone to Bai Hui. Bai Hui didn't look at it, it was just an ordinary group photo. I'll have a book signing soon, come over and support me. Bai Hui smiled and thanked Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong for their warm invitation. Definitely, definitely, Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong firmly assured her, as if they had become her fans. Bai Hui glanced at Lu Chang'an again and said nothing. If this person would come to queue up for her to sign a book, it must be because the sun is coming out from the west. Bai Hui left, walked further away and quickly took out her mobile phone. She took a look at the photo of the two of them just now. She couldn't help but bite her lips. A faint blush stained the girl's pink cheeks. She looked around, taking advantage of the absence of people came to me, quickly clicked use as wallpaper, and quickly cancelled it. She had already made some small calculations about him just now. She couldn't really be such a bitch. Bai Hui took a deep breath and looked back at Lu Chang'an, who stood out among the crowd. He would definitely be able to see her dazzling moment today, and he would definitely be able to let him feel that she is also a beautiful girl that attracts everyone's attention, not just an ugly duckling that sets off the white swan and Nuan. I recommend a very professional novel hedge written about the business world. Students who are interested in the financial industry can read it and learn a lot of rich industry knowledge. Sorry, the toothache caused inflammation, I have some fever, I feel dizzy, I have lost 10 games in a row, and I can only code a little bit in a day. I finally finished a chapter today, please forgive me. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 507. Bai Hui went to the dressing room in the guest area. The conditions in the dressing area were actually quite simple. They were just small grids made of plywood and locked doors. The dressing room in the guest area is actually the same as the ordinary dressing room. It is just marked with a brand and there are few people using it. Bai Hui happened to go there and didn't have to queue. After entering the dressing room and locking the door, Bai Hui checked carefully and found no suspicious hidden cameras. The door panels were smooth on all sides and there were no cameras installed. Then he started to take off his clothes with confidence. She is just wearing a t-shirt and a short skirt. When she goes to dance later, the song she chooses is 1,000 Miles Inviting the Moon because she is not sure about other dances so that someone in the audience may be watching and ridiculing them. Smile. It was so unbearable. I thought about how she danced so cutely and meowed like a cat for him, but he actually asked her why she didn't dance like a dog or crow like a chicken. It was so infuriating. Thinking of this, Bai Hui pressed her chest habitually, but because she was no longer wearing a coat, her fingers touched her skin directly, which made her cheeks turn red. She remembered that when they met just now, Lu Chang'an seemed to have glanced at her eyes. After taking another look at her breasts, he determined who she was. As expected, this person would peek at her breasts. Bai Hui and her cousin had both said this. Bai Hui didn't mind, and was a little proud. Looking at her breasts in the mirror, she couldn't help but blush and thought, With such good looks, who knows which bastard will get the advantage in the end. After Bai Hui left, Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong were still a little excited. Of course Lu Chang'an is not excited, she is just a fairy. Have they really healed their scars and forgotten the pain, and have they forgotten that they were seriously injured by another fairy? Fairies are like this. Even though they look cute and well behaved on the surface, they turn around and become something else. Who knows? She is our alumnus. Lu Chang'an reminded Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong that there was nothing unusual about them. The two people stood there and immediately took the photos they had just taken to talk about them in the post space, and also posted them to various groups and so on. You are a full man and don't know how hungry a man is. Your girlfriend is so beautiful, so of course you don't think anything of it, Wei Xuanyi said with a sigh after sending the photo. Compared with Zhu Huntang, do you prefer Bai Fen? Sun Shutong suddenly asked. Lu Chang'an frowned. Where to start? I took that photo for you just now. It felt very special. Anyway, it's like that kind of idol drama. The male and female protagonists are not together yet, but the audience already feels that some scenes of them together will soon be developed. It's like a sudden heartbeat. Sun Shutong thought for a while and said. It seems that you have watched too many idol dramas. If a man has expectations for love, he will either pursue his goal or become a midnight werewolf with random targets. What idol dramas can he watch to satisfy himself? Lu Chang'an looked down upon him, and he doesn't mind it much. He has always been a very photogenic person. It is natural that the self in the photo can enhance the temperament and beauty of the picture of the person taking the photo with him. What does the midnight werewolf with random targets mean? Wei Xuanyi asked. Isn't there some news? There is a 10-year-old child who, after watching a movie in an internet cafe, walks around shirtless on the street, trying to do something to the young lady. This is the midnight werewolf with random targets. Lu Chang'an explained. Ha ha ha. It's a werewolf. The three of them talked and laughed, but soon dispersed. Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong were keen on taking photos with others. Lu Chang'an had no interest in taking photos and went to participate in various activities to get small gifts, usually simple ones. Childish toys and the like are the most fun to use to tease silly kids and little girls. Lu Chang'an played for a while and received a call from Zhu Huntang asking where he was. It turned out that Zhu Huntang saw the photos of Wei Xuanyi, Sun Shutong and Bai Hui in the class group, so he asked Bai Hui by the way whether Lu Chang'an was here. Zhu Huntang came to support Bai Hui. When she found Lu Chang'an was stunned for a moment when he looked at the team she led. What are you doing? Lu Chang'an suspected that Zhu Huntang was here to demolish the museum, and pointed at the 20 or so bread men behind her and said, no, those who are not in the van cannot be called bread men. Man in black. The 20 or so people were all wearing suits, ties, and sunglasses. They were all over 1.8 meters tall. The bodyguards did not necessarily all have to be very tall. They were obviously selected. Oh, these are a bunch of idiots. Zhu Huntang turned around and casually patted the arm of a man in black behind him. It was a bit hard to pat the shoulder. The man in black held his hands in front of his lower abdomen and lowered his head slightly, looking very apologetic. I ask you why you brought so many people here. Zhu Huntang's array is too big. Logically speaking, it is a bit suspicious for such a group of people to gather together. The organizer of the comic exhibition may not want them to come in, right? But if you want to stop such a group of people, you probably don't have much courage. After all, the security guards hired by the comic show were a bit incompetent in front of these professionals in black. I brought them here to support Bai Hui. When Bai Hui dances, they will dance with Bai Hui, Zhu Huntang said proudly. Are they dancing with Bai Hui? Lu Chang'an looked at these strong men and couldn't help but lament that everyone in the world is miserable, and good men can only let the fairies torment them. Yes, they are a bunch of idiots. I have been teaching them for half a month, and they can barely learn it. When Zhu Huntang was still grounded, he began to train them to dance 1,000 miles to the moon. The stupid one has a hard time learning. Although Zhu Huntang is also a slow learner, she is lazy and likes to take her time. However, these people are obviously very hard-working, but they learn very slowly. They will collapse the stage, right? Have you considered the load-bearing capacity of the stage? Lu Chang'an reminded Zhu Huntang, pointing to the stage in the distance. It was a bit dangerous for these 20 people to stand on it. Zhu Huntang was stunned for a moment and had never thought about this problem. You, go test the stage. Zhu Huntang pointed at a man in black and ordered. The man in black went there quickly. They were professionals in this kind of security-related testing issues. Why do you want them to dance with you? It's not difficult for you to find 20 beautiful girls, even big-name professional dancers, right? Lu Chang'an asked. What's so rare about beautiful girls? Zhu Huntang dismissed it. Their image is the opposite end of yin and yang to Bianis. It is precisely because of the extreme contrast that it attracts more attention. I haven't seen that black-clad uncle dancing group in Japan. Is it more eye-catching? The contrast between their images in 1,000 miles to the moon is even greater. I also brought lighting and photography. Once the shooting is completed and post-production is uploaded to the internet, it will definitely make Baifen even more popular. What Zhu Huntang said did make sense, but it wasn't just nonsense. Lu Chang'an nodded, and reached out to grab her head in admiration to express his appreciation. Zhu Huntang held her head high under Lu Chang'an's big hands. Feeling his approval, she pulled the hem of her skirt and twisted it around proudly. Please let your people disperse first. It will affect the order in the venue, Lu Chang'an said, putting down his palm. Zhu Huntang turned around and waved his hand, letting his people disperse. Such a large group of people is really eye-catching, especially the bodyguards who are all powerful and well-dressed. They can't hide their masculine lines. Many little girls look at him with love in their eyes and can't help but look at Mr. Zhu with envy. Tang, what kind of young lady is she? She can raise so many men who look like wolves and dogs. The people in black dispersed, and although some were still staring at Zhu Huntang, no one gathered around him. Lu Chang'an planned to continue shooting archery, but Zhu Huntang pulled him and asked him to go with him to find Bai Hui. He also diligently helped Lu Chang'an carry his plastic bag, which contained several toys he had just harvested. Grandfather. Seeing that no one was watching, Zhu Huntang happily called Lu Chang'an. Good. Lu Chang'an put his hands in his pockets and nodded. Grandfather. Zhu Huntang pulled the skin on his elbow and shouted. Is something wrong? It's okay, I suddenly found that I really like the feeling of grandpa and good granddaughter. It's a bit warm. Zhu Huntang tilted his head and bumped Lu Chang'an's arm with his head. Warmth is just an illusion. In fact, you are my mount. Ba baa baa. Zhu Huntang imitated the cry of a sheep. Like a fool. Hey hey. The two of them found Bai Hui in the rest area. Bai Hui had already changed into a low skirt that felt like the spring breeze caressing the grass, and the orioles were flying. She was holding a round fan in her hand, wearing a pair of light blue flat shoes and white stockings. Pants. Of course, there are bustles and pumpkin pants that are necessary for low girls under the skirt, which is tight. Here we come. When Bai Hui saw Zhu Huntang, he immediately beamed with joy. He stood up and held Zhu Huntang's hands, and they both jumped up and down. Beautiful girls often have this kind of joy when they see beautiful girls. A feeling of, this outfit is well matched and the shoes are beautiful, Zhu Huntang said with appreciation. I'm not wearing high heels, I can't look too tall, otherwise I'll look unnatural and forcefully cute. Bai Hui only glanced at Lu Chang'an for 0.5 seconds between her words. She just wanted to saying that you can look taller is not necessary, and it is not aimed at anything else. We are actually already very tall. It would be nice if we could be a little shorter. Zhu Huntang was a little regretfully proud. Lu Chang'an pressed Zhu Huntang's head. She was worthy of being a fairy. She was as confident as if she was telling lies. Zhu Huntang raised his hands and pressed Lu Chang'an's hand on top of his head to express his dissatisfaction. Bai Hui glanced at the hands of the two people and said nothing. Why could Zhu Huntang have physical contact with Lu Chang'an so naturally? Hands are also part of the body, and holding hands is a bit ambiguous, but Zhu Huntang, there is no such feeling between Tang and Lu Chang'an. If she were to hold his hand, Bai Hui suddenly had such an idea, and suddenly felt that her palms were a little warm and about to sweat, so she quickly put her hands behind her back and held them. Hello everyone, I have a fever caused by toothache. My gums, roots, and pulp are inflamed and I am in pain. I am still hurt and I take a lot of medicine every day. I would like to ask for a monthly pass for double the period. There is no 31st this month, and you can only vote twice a day. You can vote now. Thank you all. Recommended book, Industrial Power Empire. It is difficult to achieve results with such hardcore content, but the author did it. Readers who are interested in the industrial scene can take a look. This book has more than 2 million words. Different from the spring flowers and autumn moon of summer flowers, here is the iron blood of men. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 508. Zhu Huntang held the hand holding the top of his head, bent over and moved his body back, and took himself out from under his hand. He originally wanted to say BAA twice, but gave up. Letting go of Lu Chang'an's hand, Zhu Huntang hit him twice on the back of his hand, and then stepped on Lu Chang'an. Although the relationship between grandpa and his good granddaughter is very good and warm, Zhu Huntang feels that if it always stays like this, it won't work. Sometimes Zhu Huntang still likes to provoke Lu Chang'an, and it's best if he is a little angry. The range of anger was probably within the range that made him angrily want to force her to wear her skirt and socks, but he would not actually force her to wear them, and of course he couldn't turn around and beat her up. This scale is difficult to grasp. Zhu Huntang has never been very good at testing, and has been dealt with miserably because of testing. So far, he has not been able to come up with a standard that is comfortable to him. Of course, Zhu Huntang did this small action of hitting twice and stepping on the foot. It was a process for him to accumulate anger. Increasing it little by little is a scientific and reasonable test. For example, when Zhu Huntang visited the biological laboratory, when some researchers demonstrate the functions of certain medicines, they increase the dosage little by little to show the effect. Lu Chang'an ignored Zhu Huntang's little actions. Because of his daily speaking style, it was a daily thing for girls to touch him, and he would not respond with a slap in the face. Zhu Huntang likes to do some small tricks to provoke him, but it is not because of his language style. Even though this mount sounds tame on the surface, in fact, as a fairy sheep, it still has the desire to move. Lu Chang'an, also knowing that she likes to make trouble, I usually ignore her. I found that Lu Chang'an likes to wear shoes that are soft on the outside and soft on the bottom, such as cloth shoes and leather shoes. He doesn't often wear sports shoes. As a boy, he doesn't even have a pair of AJs. After Zhu Huntang stepped on Lu Chang'an's foot, he put it on his toes and stepped on a few of his toes to feel the shoes, and then said to Bai Hui, "You don't care if you step on me once. You pretend to analyze my shoe-wearing habits and step on me several times in a row." Lu Chang'an discovered Zhu Huntang's true intention. "You're itchy again, aren't you?" "No," Zhu Huntang shook his head, refusing to admit it, and stretched out his foot openly. "Just step back." Lu Chang'an stepped down with one step. Zhu Huntang screamed and quickly retracted. She did not expect that Lu Chang'an would really step on it, but she was prepared. After retracting, she giggled and hid behind Bai Hui. Of course Lu Chang'an would not chase her and step on her. If he really wanted to step on her, he could jump up and step on her head to satisfy her wish to become shorter. Don't make trouble, there are many people paying attention here secretly, Bai Hui reminded. In fact, seeing Zhu Huntang and Lu Chang'an making trouble, it was inevitable to feel a little uncomfortable. After all, the two people not only shook hands, but also touched their feet. In comparison, when a girl steps on a boy's foot, it's like stepping on a boy's feet deliberately. Is it appropriate? You must know that in many scenes, girls' feet are associated with certain interests. Bai Hui still remembers the last days of her senior year in high school. She was Lu Chang'an's desk mate, and sometimes she would inevitably touch his feet or step on his feet under the table. It was still hot summer at that time, and everyone's shoes were cool. Sometimes they were not wearing shoes at all, and their bare feet touched each other. Bai Hui felt as if he had been electrocuted, and quickly moved away shyly. Of course, on the surface, if nothing happened, it was just an everyday casual touch. Why are you so shy? Because I am a reserved girl, it has nothing to do with anything else. Is there someone secretly filming us? I caught him and I asked someone to beat him. Zhu Huntang was very imposing. After all, she brought 3 trucks of breadmen here. In addition to those who came in, there were also those who were actually responsible for security work. Dancing breadmen were scattered outside the venue. Actually, when you come to the comic exhibition, you will inevitably get photographed. However, you can feel free to ask if you can take photos or group photos. There is no need to hide in the distance and take pictures in such a dodgy manner. Bai Hui has seen too much, and it doesn't matter. He said that she actually had some ugly photos taken and posted them on various social media. Various comments are often like, look at her in real life, she's so ugly, Anissy is just good at filming videos, I've seen her in real life, and I really can't watch her. There are also some fans or passers-by who will defend her. There is nothing to worry about. Bai Hui knows that there are many people who are malicious towards her. Once someone achieves results and gains popularity, there will always be people who come out to slander and discredit her. Isn't she standing here beautifully now? What annoys her is that there are countless compliments on her online, but Lu Chang'an in front of her always thinks she looks average. You know how to call people, but you don't plan to learn any skills yourself, Lu Chang'an said to Zhu Huntang. He couldn't understand why Sunangxiu didn't improve Zhu Huntang's physique. There should be no possibility that Sunangxiu didn't value Zhu Huntang. Sunangxiu it is planned to focus on cultivating Zhu Huntang to take over. This is what Sunangxiu is doing in practice. However, Zhu Huntang is a bit difficult for Sunangxiu. He is not like the wealthy daughters in many stories who can be labeled as business wizards no matter how stupid they behave. Tag of. She is really silly, and her label is also silly. Of course, this is Lu Chang'an's view, and others may not view her that way. Why should I learn? I am a fairy. If I want to hit someone, of course I have to call them. Can you imagine? If I roll up my sleeves and punch and kick others, can I still be called a fairy? Zhu Huntang doesn't do it. The fairies on TV all walk around floating, twist, and dance, and never hit anyone. Then you can show me how to float while walking. Zhu Huntang imitated the postures of fairies on TV and trotted around Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an shut his mouth. He found that being serious with Zhu Huntang was as if he was affected by her aura. It's not a good thing to hit someone, and there's nothing to learn from it. Not everyone likes to use violence to solve problems like you do. Bai Hui envied Zhu Huntang's cuteness and confidence. Bai Hui could imagine that if he always thought he was a fairy in front of Lu Chang'an, he would have to make the fairy feel like he was immortal with a face on his face. All problems in this world can be solved with violence. Lu Chang'an didn't say much, since the fairies couldn't understand him anyway. I didn't sleep well last night, and my face is a little swollen. Can I use violence to solve it? Bai Hui said to Lu Chang'an with her hands on her hips, and her face was swollen. It was all his fault in the first place. Last night, I felt for no reason that he might not come to the Comic-Con. I couldn't sleep with my baby in my arms, thinking about a lot of messy things. This is really good. Lu Chang'an rubbed his hands. What do you want to do? Bai Hui was horrified. I will use violence to help you solve the problem of swollen face. No, Bai Hui quickly remembered the scene where Kai Xiang was severely beaten by Tang Bohu's give me piao piao fist, and she felt that Lu Chang'an could really do it. She really guessed it right. Lu Chang'an didn't force anyone to do anything difficult and gave up. Me. Bai Hui refused in fear, but there are always those who are not afraid of death. Zhu Huntang pointed at him actively. You what? I think my face is a little swollen too. Come, Lu Chang'an likes to satisfy Zhu Huntang the most. After saying that, he took Zhu Huntang and walked to the guest dressing room. Bai Hui followed in horror and watched the two of them enter the locker room. Only the sound of pa 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 was heard, and soon the door of the locker room opened, and Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang came out. Zhu Huntang's face was indeed not as swollen as before, and seemed to be a little smaller. Her cheeks were pink and cute, but she was still full of tears, pouting in grievance, feeling like she would burst into tears at any time. Seeing the little fairy being taken care of by Lu Chang'an, Bai Hui felt a little heartbroken. What did Lu Chang'an do to Zhu Huntang just now? I recommend Fairies Please Respect Yourself by Ji Cha. Many Xiahua book friends should also know this boss. There must be a few people who carry the cauldron in the harem novel, and Xiahua and Ji Cha must be among them. It really doesn't count. Boast. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Can Ru Xiahua. Chapter 509. Bai Hui looked at Zhu Huntang. This was not the first time she saw Zhu Huntang, who had been bullied by Lu Chang'an. Every time Zhu Huntang was bullied, she would look like this with tears in her eyes, aggrieved and pitiful, which made Bai Hui feel that Lu Chang'an was not a human being. How could he kill such a beautiful and lovely fairy? It's like that again today. What Bai Hui couldn't understand was that Zhu Huntang knew very well that Lu Chang'an was definitely not the kind of guy who said, I don't hit women. Even pretending to be cute at critical moments was useless. He was not ambiguous about bullying. Why did Zhu Huntang just do that? Are you always going to hang out in front of Lu Chang'an, or even provoke him? Zhu Huntang is not like some girls who have a crush on Lu Chang'an and always like to hang out with Lu Chang'an. Bai Hui refers to Yan Qingcheng. Bai Hui knew Yan Qingcheng. After all, the two classes had held social activities. Yan Qingcheng and Bai Hui were the leaders of their respective classes, so of course they had some contact. Bai Hui could tell that Yan Qingcheng definitely liked Lu Chang'an. He always looked aloof and arrogant, but in fact, he was in contact with Lu Chang'an intentionally or unintentionally. What did you do to her? Bai Hui pulled Zhu Huntang behind him to protect her. Although Bai Hui and Zhu Huntang were as big as each other, facing an innocent and cute little fairy like Zhu Huntang, the big sister had the strong will to protect her little sister. His emotions couldn't help but be aroused. Bai Hui simply couldn't imagine that Zhu Huntang was so beautiful and lovely, and she should be loved by everyone when the flowers bloomed. Why didn't Lu Chang'an show any pity to her? I have mastered a set of palm techniques spread from the famous martial arts sword school of the Song dynasty. It can promote blood circulation and dissipate blood stasis, beautify the skin, and regulate yin and yang. I just used it on her. Didn't she say her face was swollen? Lu Chang'an was busy looking for Bai Fen begged for a pack of wet wipes. Although you can't tell, the little fairy actually has a lot of stuff on her face. Lu Chang'an has to wipe his hands. Girls always have wet wipes, cotton pads, tissues and the like in their bags. There are always some when you reach out and ask. Bai Hui took back the remaining wipes and glared at Lu Chang'an angrily, Since it's a sword sect, why is it a palm technique? That's nonsense. Ignorance, Lu Chang'an scolded. Shaolin still has 72 sets of unique skills. The Five Mountains sword sect also has internal skills, heart techniques, boxing techniques, and palm techniques, so the sword sect cannot have palm techniques? In this ancient sword sect, except for the sect leader, the other sect members are all women, so it is only natural that the sect's palm technique has such effects. Bai Hui was silent. She gave up arguing with Lu Chang'an about these messy things. It wasn't like she didn't know that he was good at rambling and making up nonsense. Then I want to learn, Zhu Huntang said with tears in his eyes immediately after hearing something he was interested in. Bai Hui let out a long breath. Why did he send it to the door by himself again? I won't teach you, Lu Chang'an refused. I want to learn, Zhu Huntang nodded Lu Chang'an's arm. Didn't you just say that you don't need to learn any skills? Lu Chang'an pressed her head. She was really a fairy sheep. She even learned how to butt people, but it was a pity that she didn't have horns. You don't have to learn how to hit people, but how can you not learn how to beautify your face? Zhu Huntang said firmly. Bai Hui looked at Zhu Huntang, who had no memory at all, and continued to sigh. Lu Chang'an never agreed, but he agreed that if Zhu Huntang's face became swollen one day and she needed beauty treatment, he could continue to perform a set of palm techniques on her, and Zhu Huntang happily agreed. Bai Hui finally understood. This was a typical case of one willing to fight and the other willing to suffer. What can be done? From now on, if Zhu Huntang cries again, Bai Hui won't show any pity and will join her in angrily reprimanding Lu Chang'an. Zhu Huntang is clearly asking for it. Bai Hui led Zhu Huntang back to the rest area, and carefully inspected Zhu Huntang's beautiful little face, confirming that there was nothing wrong with it at all. The skin did appear more compact and delicate, as smooth as if it had been peeled off of eggs. Combining Lu Chang'an's palm skills, his original prediction, and the sound of Papa Papa, Bai Hui confirmed that Lu Chang'an did not take off Zhu Huntang's skirt and did anything just now, but slapped Zhu Huntang on the face. Countless times. Just like when Bai Hui returned to his hometown in the countryside when he was very young, they made glutinous rice cakes during the Chinese New Year. They first put the glutinous rice balls in a stone trough with a layer of lard and beat them countless times. Finally, the rice balls became shiny. The water is slippery. It's probably the same principle. It really worked. Bai Hui touched his face. Although he felt a little silly after being slapped in the face countless times, if he really wanted to beautify his face, it didn't seem unacceptable, so Bai Hui glanced at Lu Chang'an. You also want to learn the palm technique? Lu Chang'an noticed Bai Hui looking at him. Bai Hui quickly shook her head subconsciously, thinking about it a little bit, but she couldn't admit it unless Lu Chang'an also took her to the small room and forced her to accept it. I tell you, the ancient sect he mentioned really exists, Zhu Huntang said to Bai Hui mysteriously. She was sure that Lu Chang'an was talking about the Zhuzhu Fenglai sword section, just like the two guardians of the Zhuzhu Fenglai sword sect and saints are all girls, and the fact that all the members of the ancient Kyushu Fengaljian sect except the sect master are girls has a long history. Although Zhu Huntang is just a protector of the immortal sheep under the Holy Maiden, there are some differences from the protector of Qinyan's sect, but he is also a protector, isn't he? I don't know how high it is compared to my previous internship as an ordinary gang member. If Bai Hui also wants to join the Kyushu Fenglai sword sect, Zhu Huntang thinks that Bai Hui can start from the elite gang, but it is a pity that Bai Hui does not have superpowers. Does having huge breasts count as a superpower? Zhu Huntang decided that if Bai Hui applied, she could use this reason to speak for Bai Hui. You are so confused by him that you believe everything he says, although Bai Hui sometimes feels that he is also confused. Things like the sword sect are too nonsense. Have you forgotten that Lu Chang'an is the best martial arts master in the county? The palm technique he learned is ancient and was first taught by Xiang Shaolong to his wives. Doesn't Xiang Xiaolong have many wives? This palm technique is very popular. Welcome, he beats his wife every day to keep his wife's peerless appearance. Zhu Huntang came up with the inference based on the Sun Qin Ji she recently read. She had asked Zhong Qing to buy the book before, and it was in solitary confinement. When I was bored, I flipped through it. What made Zhu Huntang a little dissatisfied was that since it was a blind history book, why didn't it make up a story about Jing Ke stabbing Prince Dan 3 times? In this way, she could have a heated argument with Lu Chang'an with good reason. It's getting more and more ridiculous. Xiang Xiaolong is a fictional character, Bai Hui has actually read Looking for Qin. When a beautiful girl reads this kind of book during her developmental period, there are always some embarrassing scenes that she can't look back on. Don't make up a background story for me. Lu Chang'an didn't want Zhu Huntang to involve him and Xiang Xiaolong, which would be unlucky. The three of them chatted for a while and then saw Qianning, Lu Yuan, and Bai Rui walking over together. There was also a girl wearing a Lolita skirt holding Lu Yuan's hand. Lu Yuan struggled subconsciously, but was held tightly by the girl. Only then did Lu Yuan seem to realize something and looked at Bai Hui with a sense of loss. "You're back." Bai Hui greeted Lu Yuan with a smile, and nodded to Qianning and Bai Rui. "Even though we have broken our skin before, girls don't mind if they do superficial things." Zhu Huntang glanced at the faces of the people across from him and felt that there were a lot of stories to be mined. For example, she found a girl peeking at Lu Chang'an. The girl's boyfriend glanced at Bai Fen with complicated eyes and then looked at his girlfriend with a look of disbelief. On the other side of the couple, the girl in the low skirt, her eyes were full of hostility and comparison, and some detailed movements were always showing off her little skirt, while her boyfriend's eyes were wandering, looking like an amorous young man who was deeply in love. "My grandpa is the most indifferent and noble in temperament." These two boys seemed to like Bai Hui, but with Lu Chang'an as the background, how can Bai Fei see the play in your eyes? "This is my girlfriend Lin Li, who is from the same school. She is coming back with me for a wedding banquet this time," Lu Yuan introduced. He was in a domestic cooperative branch of a world-famous school on the coast. It was a compromise to study abroad, and the tuition was very high. Most people can't afford it. "Hello everyone," Lin Li smiled, her eyes wandering on the three people opposite for a moment, and finally fell on Bai Hui. "It is said that the girl whom my boyfriend has liked for many years has a good figure, but when wearing most low-coat skirts, except for a pair of calves, basically no trace of the exquisite figure can be seen." She was able to tell that it was Bai Hui, of course, because Bai Hui carried a donkey brand bag with her, because Lin Li already knew that Bai Hui was a rich young woman, and the other lady low with an innocent smile next to her had nothing in her hands. Probably just a poor farm. Lin Li was not rich before, but now she has a rich boyfriend, so she looks down on those girls who obviously don't have much money, but like to jump into low skirts. As for the boy next to this poor loner, he is tall and slender. He is probably the Lu Chang'an that Bai Rui mentioned repeatedly when chatting with Bai Rui in the past 2 days. He has a good temperament, but he is not as handsome as Cai Guancan. "This is my friend Zhu Huntang and Lu Chang'an." Bai Hui introduced the two people to Lin Li, and introduced Zhu Huntang to Lu Yuan. "Lu Chang'an, is she your girlfriend?" Bai Rui has heard of Zhu Huntang. According to Qianning, there is a girl named Zhu Huntang in Hunan University who often takes helicopters and Rolls Royces to school. Bai Rui can't take her eyes away. He looked at Zhu Huntang and asked Lu Chang'an some gossip. Although Bai Rui was deceived by Lu Chang'an last time, it doesn't matter if a boy with such a personality is deceived by him once. Girls all like to be tricked by boys, and they often end up being tricked into bed. "Who are you?" Lu Chang'an did not deny it directly. No one would mind if he and his horse were misunderstood as a couple. Even An Nuan did not regard Zhu Huntang as a jealous object, and Lu Chang'an had no need to explain anything to strangers. Bai Rui was stunned for a moment. This person actually didn't even remember who she was? "Lu Chang'an, we just met last time, Why are you pretending to be noble and cool? Qian Ning said angrily. Bai Rui was playing with his mobile phone when he looked at Bai Hui's space and knew that Bai Hui was a guest at the comic show today. So he shouted to come, but Qian Ning didn't want to come at all, and he didn't expect to see Lu Chang'an. What made Qian Ning very disgusted was that he suspected that Bai Rui called Lu Chang'an's name when he was having sex with her. But Qian Ning didn't hear clearly at the time, wasn't sure, and didn't want to quarrel with Bai Rui, so he kept holding in his anger. He is already noble, does he need to pretend? Do I have to remember you, a stupid dog, when I meet him? Last time my dog bit someone, I didn't remember what that person looked like. Zhu Huntang thought for a moment, and indeed he couldn't remember, so he added, I tried hard to think about it, but I still can't remember it. Zhu Huntang made a mistake. She thought Lu Chang'an didn't know Qian Ning either. In fact, Lu Chang'an just didn't remember Bai Rui. After all, men can get familiar with each other's appearance through long-term relationship, but if women are average-looking, Lu Chang'an will be disappointed after just one meeting. It is very difficult to remember. You, Zhu Huntang, don't think that you can do whatever you want if you have money. Be careful what you say, Qian Ning blushed. Who among the students of Hunan University doesn't know Zhu Huntang? How rich is she? Richer than Lu Yuan. Lin Li proudly held her boyfriend's arm and sneered. The low skirt worn by the girl in front of her was not a high-priced Japanese brand at all, nor was it even a well-known domestic brand. Several national brands, at first glance, are some unknown brands that follow design styles and sell patterns. The surname is Lu. The Lu family ranks third among the richest Chinese people in Forbes this year, Zhu Huntang thought for a while. She knew about the Lu family. The Lu family's little daughter is very cute, but is there such a man in front of her? Zhu Huntang has no impression. Lu Yuan blushed. His family had some money, but it had nothing to do with the Forbes list. What's the Forbes list? Is your family on it? Lin Li said angrily. She felt that this poor man wanted to raise the threshold for rich people to prove that Lu Yuan's family was not rich either. My family is. Zhu Huntang nodded, our family ranks first. That list is very entertaining, because in fact many of the assets controlled by the Zhu family cannot be directly attributed to the Zhu family, but this list is based on the information obtained by the list maker, rather than registered in the Zhu family. Asset statistics under the name. You are really bragging about not drafting. Lin Li looked at everyone with a smile, looking for a sarcastic resonance. But she found that except for herself, no one seemed to question or laugh at Zhu Huntang at all. Instead, she was faced with eyes and expressions of various meanings. You know her? Lin Li looked stiffly at her boyfriend Lu Yuan, who turned aside. I've heard of her. Lu Yuan nodded. He also learned about Zhu Huntang's name when he heard Qian Ning gossiping about some things about Hunan University. Lu Yuan was just not sure whether Zhu Huntang was the first in the family, but it seemed unlikely that a girl who often flew to school in a helicopter and a customized extended Rolls-Royce would brag about this. What is certain is that Lu Yuan did not dare to say that he was rich in front of Zhu Huntang. You guys go, I'm going to prepare for the performance. Bai Hui sighed lightly, looking at the faces of Qian Ning and Lu Yuan, feeling mixed in his heart, he motioned for them to leave. Bai Hui knew that Qian Ning and Lu Yuan had some resentment in their hearts, otherwise they would not have brought their girlfriends to Bai Hui repeatedly. They just wanted to prove that they could still find a good one if they did not pursue Bai Hui. Girlfriend, there is nothing special about her. Although a little disappointed, Bai Hui is now less and less angry at what they and their girlfriends did. Because I can understand their mood and mentality more and more. What you do will eventually come back to you. I recommend a book called The Strongest Son-in-Law in History. It's a super cool book that never stops showing off. Low skirts, most low skirts are similar to curtain fabrics, and the workmanship is just better than COS clothing. The same is true for the two major Japanese brands AP and Baby. Low skirts break when a girl wears a low skirt and pulls on it when having sex with her boyfriend. It's a very rare and common thing. In fact, many national brands now are not bad and the price is low. 1,000 is almost the price ceiling, most of them are only a few hundred yuan. Many Japanese brands are indeed good looking, but the prices are extremely expensive, so there is no need to pursue them deliberately. I hope everyone will support domestic products so that big names like AP and Baby, which have defrauded countless wallets, cannot afford to play. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 510. Let's go. Lu Yuan pulled Lin Li to leave. In front of Zhu Huntang's well-informed friend, there was no need for Zhu Huntang to brag. Facing a girl from such a family background, Lu Yuan, who always liked to use money to clear the way, would feel powerless. Lin Li suddenly raised her head, as long as she didn't believe that the other party was really that rich. After all, her words were unfounded. She said she was the eldest lady of the Zhu family on the Forbes Chinese rich list, so she was. Lin Li often said that she was Xiao Xianrou's wife. However, Lin Li didn't have the confidence to say anything else. She snorted and followed Lu Yuan's intention and walked aside. After all, staying any longer felt like she was asking for boredom. Many people at the comic exhibition will ask for photos with others, Bai Rui said reluctantly. Except for Zhu Huntang and Lu Chang'an, everyone else knew what Bai Rui wanted to do. If you keep doing this, we'll break up. Qian Ning was so angry that he couldn't restrain the impulse in his heart. At this time, Bai Rui was still thinking about taking a photo with Lu Chang'an. If we break up, we'll break up, Bai Rui agreed nonchalantly, then looked at Lu Chang'an and smiled. Let's take a photo together. You go back and take a photo with your mother, Lu Chang'an suggested seriously. Bai Rui glared at Lu Chang'an, always feeling that Lu Chang'an was swearing, but it was difficult to say so. Qian Ning glared at Bai Rui for the last time, and walked away alone without looking for Lu Yuan and Lin Li. Bai Rui found that Qian Ning really ignored her, and sneered, and left in another direction. She didn't believe that Qian Ning wouldn't come to her tonight. Watching these four people leave, Bai Hui relaxed. At this time, it would be great if someone could help massage the shoulders and neck. Some people are good at facial slapping for beauty, and they must be good at massaging loose bones. It is the delicate heart of a girl and the iron heart of some people. There is no way for the mind to understand clearly. Did that girl just want to take a photo with you? Zhu Huntang thought for a long time and finally realized it. From the looks of it, she definitely didn't want to take a photo with herself or Bai Hui. Zhu Huntang looked sideways at Lu Chang'an. People only want to take photos when they see novel species, such as fairy sheep, Lu Chang'an denied. What fairy sheep? Bai Hui wondered. Zhu Huntang quickly lowered his head and nodded at Lu Chang'an, not wanting to expose him. Nothing, just give us 2 cheering sticks. Zhu Huntang and I will wave the sticks for you later. Lu Chang'an saw the professional cheering sticks when the House Dance Club recruited new performers at the 100 Regiment Battle in Academy Square last time. He was actively learning and integrating into the group, so he must have no problem today. Hui Hui, Zhu Huntang pretended to have a cute accent and waved at the same time. Bai Hui gave them a few. In fact, Bai Hui was a little nervous because she was worried that she would not be able to adapt to Lu Chang'an's pretentious support in the audience later. At this time, someone informed Bai Hui to wait, and several people dispersed. Zhu Huntang called the bread man over and followed Bai Hui. Bai Hui straightened her waist again, and with the more than 20 men in black behind her, she suddenly felt very powerful. Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang went to stand in the audience, but there were unexpectedly many people, and the two of them could only stand far away. It turns out that the host has been warming up for a while, and everyone knows that the next person to appear is the most important guest of this comic exhibition, Anisi. Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang did not expect Bai Hui to be so popular. After Zhu Huntang screamed excitedly a few times, he wanted to climb on Lu Chang'an's back, or climb on his neck and let him carry him. I was undoubtedly rejected indifferently. Is it a bit unclear who the mount is? Fortunately, Zhu Huntang was a dwarf in front of Lu Chang'an, but she was not short compared to most people. Standing on tiptoes on the periphery did not affect her view of the stage. I found that my eyesight has improved. I had to use telescopes when I was so far away before Zhu Huntang hooked her fingers. A bread man had already given her a portable telescope. This is what Zhu Huntang usually uses when watching some theater programs or indoors. It is used for stadium sports events. As for large-scale outdoor sports events, it is another telescope. It seems that you absorbed my blood energy last time, and Shangguan Dandan's coffin adjustment is not without benefit to you. Lu Chang'an analyzed that ordinary people's eyesight cannot get better for no reason, basically just because they play everyday cell phone eye damage. Then have you ever used your supervision to peek at girls? Zhu Huntang was focusing on Bai Hui with a telescope when he suddenly thought of this question. This has been a common thing for thousands of years. Lu Chang'an nodded. It's not really a peek. Sometimes I just glance at it. When will I be able to talk about the shameless things I have done with a calm face like you? Zhu Huntang said enviously. Are you shameless? Lu Chang'an waved his hand. Everyone was at different levels, with different visions and mentality. He remembered that he had discussed similar issues with Qin Yinan. Later, Qin Yinan was so angry that he wanted to borrow a dog from Zhongqing to bite Lu Chang'an. Shameless, Zhu Huntang said softly. The performance has begun. Lu Chang'an interrupted his chatter with Zhu Huntang. In fact, from the moment the man in black who danced with Bai Hui appeared on the stage, the audience was already on fire. Many people held up their mobile phones to take pictures of such a domineering house dance performance. Some people are excited. Someone laughed. Someone's eyes were shining with a strange light. Some people think this is material. Some people are clamoring to make the original protagonist the protagonist and the original protagonist become the background. As the music played, the neat movements of the man in black suddenly made him look a little handsome. With a tall and strong figure, even if his dancing is not very good, as long as his movements are neat, he still has a visual effect that makes people want to applaud. With a smile on her face, Bai Hui glanced at Lu Chang'an, who didn't show any other expression. After feeling relieved, his expression became more natural, and he danced more confidently. He began to slow down his movements, letting his rhythm match that of the people in black. Become more harmonious, even if it means sacrificing your own dance feeling. Anisi was led astray by them. Ha ha ha, when Huizi moved just now, he stepped on the wrong spot with them. I've seen the video of this dance on her website, and it's obviously teaching video level accuracy. It's like this again, they danced so neatly even if they made mistakes, forcing Anisi to be like them. There is no way. Who can lead the rhythm of such a large group of people? The only one who can lead the rhythm is the one being led. Obviously, there are many people in the audience who usually like to watch house dances, and the comments are relatively professional, but no one said that Bai Hui's dancing level is not good. The dance of less than 3 minutes ended quickly, and the applause was very warm. Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang were waving sticks from behind. The host came on stage again to interact with the audience and interview Bai Hui. Bai Hui was a guest again and participated in several programs that invited the audience before leaving. After Bai Hui left the field, he found Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang in the rest area. His cheeks were flushed and there was a little sweat on his forehead. He smiled sheepishly. I feel a little embarrassed, as if I'm pretending to be who I am in front of you like an internet celebrity. No, it's far from that. Your popularity is actually very small. Once you leave the two-dimensional circle, almost no one recognizes you. Lu Chang'an told her not to worry. He didn't think she looked like an internet celebrity. Zhu Huntang and Bai Hui looked at Lu Chang'an together. I'll give you a small apple to eat. Can you keep your mouth shut? Bai Hui took out an apple from her bag, which was her lunch, and a bottle of yogurt, but she finished it early. Lu Chang'an didn't want it. Such a small apple was barely enough for Zhou Dongdong to perform an apple in a bite show. Delete the plot of a cross-dressing boss. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 511. The minor disturbance quickly dissipated, and soon someone posted what happened at the comic show on social media, which naturally aroused a lot of discussion. Maybe he's not a pervert, just a cross-dresser. Can you enter the women's restroom just by dressing up as a woman? It's so disgusting. Go to Thailand quickly. In fact, unisex toilet is available in many places such as high-speed rail stations and airports. Isn't it the foreign country mentioned above? It exists in China. It is rare and strange. Is it true that it is like this abroad? Lu Chang'an naturally did not pay attention to these discussions, and he did not think too much about whether it was appropriate or legal and reasonable to do so. Why are you thinking so much? It's just looking at the evil-looking thing after tossing it. At this time, someone touched Lu Chang'an. What's going on? Is it illegal to dress up as a woman? Is it illegal to dress up as a woman? Lu Chang'an looked back and looked at it again. Based on the voice, it was probably Qin's Haiqiang. Qin's Haiqiang had just come out of the men's room and was shocked when he saw Zhou Ben being taken away by the police. He didn't want to be taken away and exposed. What if the news reached the school? It's not against the law to dress up as a woman, it's against the law only when the women's clothing is too ugly. If you're okay, it's not a crime. Lu Chang'an laughed. Scared me to death. Qin's Haiqiang patted his chest. Seeing this action, Lu Chang'an pointed to the side and motioned for him to play by himself. Qin's Haiqiang took his bag and went to the storage area. He couldn't walk around here carrying a backpack familiar to Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong. It would be too easy to be exposed. Lu Chang'an turned around, and Zhu Huntang and Bai Hui, who had come back to watch the excitement, were looking at him strangely. The one just now is also in women's clothing, right? Looking at the back, shoulders, and walking posture, there is still a big difference, Bai Hui asked doubtfully. Lu Chang'an nodded. It turns out that the guy named Zhou just didn't suit your taste, Zhu Huntang said suddenly, and then he was puzzled, but looking at the back, this one is not a Qin Zhong level rabbit master, right? You are ignorant, but you know a lot about this. Lu Chang'an didn't think that Zhu Huntang would study Dream of Red Mansions by himself. He probably flipped through it casually while taking pictures with this tome to show off his style. I saw Qin Zhong related content. It's just that the ordinary version of A Dream of Red Mansions doesn't talk about Qin Zhong and Jiao Beiyu in detail. It doesn't show that Qin Zhong is the Rabbit Lord. Can you tell that with Zhu Huntang's level? Then it is more likely that what Zhu Huntang is reading is a fan version of the Little Yellow Book version of Dream of Red Mansions. Lu Chang'an glanced at the fairy, who always looked innocent and cute, so it was good to see what the girl looked like on the outside. What she looked like behind the scenes might be completely different. I usually like reading, especially classics like Dream of Red Mansions. Zhu Huntang changed his tone to a more bookish tone, catering to his persona who likes to read. Lu Chang'an nodded and said nothing. I watched Dream of Red Mansions when I was in elementary school, but it was the elementary school version. I copied some sentences from it when I was in high school, Bai Hui said with some nostalgia. The thickness of A Dream of Red Mansions is just right for sleeping on the table, Lu Chang'an also said with some nostalgia. It seems so, Bai Hui laughed. The person next to him turned out to be his high school classmate, and they are still playing together now. It feels like time has passed, but it is getting better and better. You disrespect traditional classics too much, Zhu Huntang condemned righteously. Lu Chang'an used a finger to compare with a knife and stabbed Zhu Huntang 3 times, indicating that the person who discovered that Jing Ke stabbed Prince Dan 3 times was not qualified to say this. When the first, second, and third blows came, Zhu Huntang didn't think much. He circled his thumb and index finger together and covered Lu Chang'an's fingers to prevent him from continuing to hint. Bai Hui saw this and felt ashamed for Zhu Huntang. He hurriedly squeezed between the two people and separated the circle formed by Lu Chang'an's fingers and Zhu Huntang's thumb and index finger. "What are you doing?" Zhu Huntang was confused because she was pulled aside by Bai Hui. "How could you do that kind of action with him?" Bai Hui felt that Zhu Huntang was too careless about the relationship between men and women with Lu Chang'an. Girls have delicate minds and are good at giving out various hints, and if a man can understand it, this is often the beginning of a romantic affair. Now Bai Hui understands more and more that it doesn't mean that, and it's best not to be misunderstood. "What action?" Zhu Huntang was still confused and kept the gesture that seemed to mean okay. Bai Hui lowered her head and squeezed together with Zhu Huntang, using her finger to poke Zhu Huntang's gesture. Zhu Huntang was thoughtful. In the old Juncha Old Street, there were often some prostitutes. When they saw a man who looked like a client, they would raise their hands and make this gesture. If the man was interested, he would extend his finger and the prostitute would catch him. With his fingers, he pulled him into his room. Bai Hui saw that Zhu Huntang hadn't reacted yet, so he had to explain to her carefully. Oh, Zhu Huntang understood. Bai Hui stretched out a finger to press Zhu Huntang's lips, signaling her to stop talking. "Aren't you a little fairy? You're not a fairy if you talk about these things." "I am a fairy after all." Zhu Huntang didn't take it seriously. He grabbed the edge of the skirt and twisted around. In other respects, Zhu Huntang's mentality may not be very strong, but he firmly believed that she was a fairy. "Don't waver and deny yourself. Okay, anyway, don't let Lu Chang'an secretly take advantage of you. He must know these things, and maybe he is still laughing at you now," Bai Hui said somewhat gloomily. "I'm not afraid of his jokes." Zhu Huntang continued not to take it seriously. In front of him, she was just a fairy sheep. After all, how could she not laugh at anything? Why did he make that gesture just now, like poking 3 times in a row? What does it mean? Bai Hui didn't want to ask at first, but it felt like this was a tacit understanding between Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang. "Bai Hui, I wanted to know a little bit, so I asked casually. If Zhu Huntang didn't want to tell, then there was nothing to be embarrassed about. Bai Hui wouldn't care after 10 days and a half. It means Jing Ke stabbed the king of Qin. Jing Ke stabbed the king of Qin 3 times. When I chatted with him before, I discussed some historical records, Ziji Tong Jian, Sun Qin Ji and so on." Zhu Huntang nodded and said that was it. In this way, she was not willing to admit that she was uneducated and incompetent in front of her little sisters, but that was not necessarily the case. Bai Hui was also a fairy, and the fairies thought that Jing Ke had stabbed Prince Dan 3 times. Bai Hui was very confused. How could Sun Qin Ji be discussed together with historical records and Ziji Tong Jian? Forget it, it doesn't sound like anything ambiguous, so there's no need to dig deeper into the gossip about another high school classmate of mine. But Jing Ke didn't stab King Qin 3 times, either. If he were stabbed, history would probably be different. If one move affects the whole body, it would be unclear whether he and Zhu Huntang exist or not. If it is Lu Chang'an, he will probably exist. After all, he is a straight man of cosmic level. How can the law of causality bend his sense of existence? Thinking that there was nothing wrong, Bai Hui turned around, only to find that she had only dragged Zhu Huntang away for a short while. Lu Chang'an did not maintain male etiquette at all and waited for the lady to come back. He didn't know where he went. Claw machine? Bai Hui suddenly felt something and pulled Zhu Huntang and ran over to where the claw machine was placed. As expected, he saw Lu Chang'an showing off his skills there. Bai Hui's heart suddenly pounded a little. If he caught a lot of dolls here, would he give them to others? Zhu Huntang doesn't seem interested in these cheap but cute dolls. I recommend a book called Feng Shen Daoxing. This is a story about becoming Shen Gongbao's apprentice in the world of Feng Shen. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 512. Bai Hui discovered that Zhu Huntang was indeed not very interested in the doll, but was very interested in the process of catching the doll. Bai Hui also noticed that Zhu Huntang especially liked to pretend to be cute in front of Lu Chang'an. When Lu Chang'an grabbed a doll, Zhu Huntang would scream "Baa," sometimes "Baa," sometimes "Baa," called 3 times in a row. After listening more, Bai Hui realized that she was imitating a sheep's meow. At first, she thought it was some word in the Hokkien dialect. Lu Chang'an caught 2 alpaca dolls for Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang held one in each hand and bleated at the 2 alpacas, as if talking to the dolls. So childish and cute, Zhu Huntang can look cute as a child without caring what other people think of her. Bai Hui was a little envious. If she was so childish and cute, she would definitely be ridiculed by Lu Chang'an. Catch a bear for me. Seeing Lu Chang'an catch 2 alpacas for Zhu Huntang, Bai Hui tugged on Lu Chang'an's clothes and pointed to the baby bear in a machine next to him in a low voice. Raging. Bear, it's just bear. Bai Hui mustered up his courage and stamped his feet to urge him. The word bear is a bit cute, but Zhu Huntang kept imitating the sheep calling him and didn't say anything. Is it because he used a cute word? Was he going to ridicule it? Lu Chang'an did not want to ridicule her. If fairies like Bai Hui and Zhu Huntang were not allowed to pretend to be cute, it would be no different than not allowing them to wear fairy-like skirts. Life would be worse than death. But when she came off the stage, the 2 holes in the corset behind her were loosened, allowing her breasts to be freed again. When she stamped her feet, they would shake, complimenting the bear. It turned out that the reason why the corset was tight was, of course, it's because dancing on stage inevitably involves jumping around, and the movement is too great, so you have to tie it up tightly. Lu Chang'an also caught 2 bears for Bai Hui. Zhu Huntang wanted to exchange one with Bai Hui, but Bai Hui was unwilling because Zhu Huntang's alpacas looked silly, and Bai Hui was afraid that he would be imitated if he held it. The sheep brayed. These 2 bears are so big. When Zhu Huntang's request was rejected, he looked at Bai Hui maliciously and laughed. I hate you, Bai Hui said angrily. Fortunately, this was a public place, and Zhu Huntang couldn't pounce on the bear like he did in private. Lu Chang'an continued his efforts and caught a total of about 30 dolls. Zhu Huntang was only interested in dolls of 3 kinds of animals: sheep, dogs, and cats. There were not many of these 3 kinds, only about 10, so Zhu Huntang called for bread. People came over and asked each of them to hold one and follow her majestically. The rest was given to Bai Hui. It was packed in a big plastic bag. It was heavy and made Bai Hui smile. She decided to put it next to the bed just enough to form a row. After playing in the afternoon, Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang were about to leave. Bai Hui also completed the signing work and left the venue with Lu Chang'an. Zhu Huntang invited them to go back together, but Lu Chang'an had to walk, and Bai Hui said to forget it if it was not convenient. Zhu Huntang still held the 2 alpacas in his hand. He glanced at Bai Hui, sighed softly in his heart, and stretched out his hand to wave goodbye. Hey, the little white pig fell in love with the bad old man, said an alpaca. Hey, does the bad old man like little white pigs, said another alpaca. Hey, the little white pig is cute, big-breasted, and a fairy. Isn't it more suitable to be a girlfriend than building 2, said an alpaca. Baa, yes, the bad old man definitely wants to play with the little white pig, another alpaca said. Zhu Huntang grabbed the 2 alpacas and looked back through the window. Sure enough, after Bai Hui and Lu Chang'an said a few words, Bai Hui followed Lu Chang'an and left together. The comic expo lasts for 2 days. If you are interested, you can come tomorrow. A more beautiful guest lady will arrive tomorrow, Bai Hui casually recommended to Lu Chang'an. Not interested, Lu Chang'an shook his head and walked along Trinity Avenue with Bai Hui. Then why are you here today? Bai Hui asked casually. What's the problem with cheering up an old classmate? Lu Chang'an glanced at the old classmate and said, that day you hid behind the poster and secretly gave away tickets, and pretended that the tickets you gave were very popular. In fact, no one wanted them at all. Right? I'm just a soft-hearted person. I figured I'd have nothing to do on the weekend anyway, so I came to cheer you up. I also brought 3 people here, so you don't need to thank me. Am I not popular? Bai Hui's face turned red. She didn't expect that he had noticed her little move of hiding behind the poster that day, but wasn't he telling lies? How popular she was at the scene today. Don't you know? During the book signing, she also had the longest queue in front of her. Absolutely. Last time I evaded fares to go to a concert and sat on the roof of the Halong Stadium to watch Jackie Chung's solo concert. That's what people call popular, Lu Chang'an recalled. The quality of the roof was good, and I walked on it. There was no problem walking back and forth, and later I saw several fugitives being caught by the police. Bai Hui looked at Lu Chang'an in disbelief. What kind of thinking was this person thinking? Comparing her with Jackie Chung? When did you become so popular? You just barely need my support. Lu Chang'an felt that his support would not matter at that time, otherwise other levels of popularity would be sparse and ordinary. No, you have to come to support me anytime, Bai Hui protested unconsciously. No. I mean we are old classmates. If I were so popular, I would still care about my old classmates. I am not the kind of person who forgets old relationships easily. Bai Hui turned her head and stretched out her hand to block it. Half of his cheek explained. It's impossible. You can't sing well, you can't dance well, and your talent in the entertainment industry is average. Lu Chang'an didn't feel that he was attacking Bai Fen. This was called helping her understand the reality clearly. Then you still compare me with Jackie Chung. Can we compare together? He has to be at his level to be considered popular. Really? Bai Hui's eyes widened. Lu Chang'an is really hateful. What can't be compared? Everyone can be compared with others, but they will only compete in various abilities later, Lu Chang'an said nonchalantly. Bai Hui doesn't argue with him about this, but debates with him. Anyway, Bai Hui thinks that he is not at this level, and this person really thinks that he can be compared with any superstar, super rich, super powerful person in the world, and will not look down on others. He won't look down on himself either. Some people are born with this state of mind, and Bai Hui can't learn from it. But now that he said that, Bai Hui was silent for a while, and couldn't help but said, can anyone really be compared with anyone? Of course, how could Lu Chang'an slap himself in the face? Oh, Bai Hui imitated Lu Chang'an's normal nodding manner. The first 2 nods were very gentle and indifferent, and the last one nodded slightly. He turned his head along the way, closed his eyes slightly, opened them and looked away, and then said nothing. Lu Chang'an looked at Bai Hui suspiciously. What did she mean? I just want, if An Nuan provokes me in the future, I will tell her that in your eyes I can be compared with her. Bai Hui glanced at Lu Chang'an and immediately said, you dare to say that? What are you doing? I'll tell you now. Lu Chang'an thought for a moment and cupped his hands. Wise. Don't worry, she won't provoke me, and I won't provoke her. After all, we are also old classmates and have a good relationship. We often chat until late at night and even make appointments to go shopping and have dinner together. Bai Hui snorted, and now she wants to. He is full of fairy spirit and not a bit bitchy at all. He is just talking to Lu Chang'an. Who asked him to always compete with her and not give in to her at all? Lu Chang'an knew that they often made appointments to go shopping and eat together. This was a fact, but it was only an appointment that was true. Lu Chang'an wanted to go for a stroll in Yuehu Park, and Bai Hui wanted to take line 5. This section was on the way, so Bai Hui followed him. At this time, an electric car passed by from behind. A bundle of steel bars tied behind the electric car picked up the plastic bag in Bai Hui's hand. Bai Hui screamed and let go of the plastic bag. He was carried by the electric car and flew a distance, falling into a nearby muddy puddle. This is a pit dug for transplanting trees, filled with mud and water. My doll, Bai Hui hurriedly chased after her, only to see that the plastic bag was also torn, and the dolls inside fell into the muddy puddles one by one. Bai Hui hurriedly lay down next to the pit and reached out to fish out his dolls. He just saw that almost all the dolls were muddy and dirty, and no longer looked as cute as before. He reached out and grabbed one, holding it wet in his hand. Bai Hui felt very aggrieved, as if she felt that no matter what, some things that look beautiful, even if they are the same on the surface, may experience different situations because of real differences, and may be stripped of their superficial beauty at any time. Get ugly. Bai Hui couldn't help but cry. The sole of her foot slipped and she fell into the mud puddle. She was stunned for a moment, wiped her tears, and silently fished out the doll in the muddy water. Lu Chang'an stood nearby, looking at Bai Fen, who was covered in mud and water. Her favorite fairy-like little skirt was now full of mud and water, and the white stockings had also turned yellow, not to mention the pair of even zhuntang. I admire the matching shoes that look great. Why are you crying? Bai Hui raised her head and looked at Lu Chang'an with tears in her eyes. This, can she not cry? To him, it was just a randomly picked doll, but to her, it was a gift. After all, it was impossible for him to give her a gift as elaborate as an Nuance Chong Sam, but Bai Hui also wanted to receive a gift, even if it didn't require much effort, it was still a gift she liked. How many dolls do you want? Lu Chang'an sighed. Bai Hui grabbed the wet dolls in her hands, but still didn't react. Now she just wanted to take out all the dolls and then go back to wash them and dry them. He didn't even mean to help. I'll take you back first. After you change your clothes, I'll take you to catch the dolls. I'll catch as many dolls as you want. Bai Hui broke through her tears and smiled. Even though his face was expressionless, even though he looked like he had no choice but to do anything to her, even though he was just pitying her, after all, it was a trace of tenderness that she extracted from her heart of steel. Exchange the little white pig for a monthly pass. Don't take the script, plot, and plot of your own imagination, and then insist on saying that I will write it this way. Please, have some self-knowledge. Even if it is the same plot, if I write it, will the effect be the same as if it is written by someone else? Can it feel the same? Can the level be the same?